Going back to the conversation of aggression, if you had a shotgun in the game, you didn't want to make it like an option that you wouldn't want to go for. But like the weapons in Deathloop as a whole are some of the most fun I've seen out of a shooter, let alone an Arkane game. And part of that is the perks they come with. Like, I remember that the shotgun that transforms for buckshot and slugs. I remember getting a variation of that where in the slug form it would fire a gas canister, and then and then when you transform it to buckshot, it lights off the gas.
Yeah,
and it's just like that is so fun. And it's like, what did the team go for in designing the arsenal for Deathloop? And was there any different perspective or philosophy in comparison to other games?
We wanted to have an arsenal of weapons that was, for the most part, easily grokable. Like, this is a shotgun. I know what a shotgun is. I know what it will, so that you have, because it's a strange world with strange concepts. We wanted a few things that you can just, that can just be, things that you can feel, okay, that I know what it is and I know how to use it in a video game, right? We wanted familiar weapons, but of course, we didn't want that to go in the way of discovery and to go in the way of experimentation and craziness. So what we went, instead of making a set of normal weapons and then a set of weird weapons, what we did was, let's have those same weapons, but then tweak them and change the hunting rifle into a rocket launcher with an explosive bullet perk, and change the nail gun into a sonar kind of detection tool with the right upgrade, etc., etc. So it was kind of thinking of mods, not mods that, of course, there is some trinkets and some perks that just make it a better weapon, but ideally what we were going for is what we call horizontal progression, not vertical progression. Vertical progression being it's +5, it's +10, it's +30. By the end of the game, it's +100 damage. And horizontal being it allows you to interact with the world and the systems in different ways. And that's what we were going for. In Dishonored 1, I remember a lot of discussion because the philosophy was still there. It was just not a world with as many weapons, but the philosophy with the upgrades that you can get in Dishonored 2 was kind of the same. But it's actually, even before that, I remember having long discussions with Harvey and Raf and Serge, the other system designer on Dishonored, about the pistol versus the crossbow. Do they overlap too much? Just one of them is silent basically means one of them is better, correct? So we had to go a little bit crazy and add a lot of different factors to make them both very different beyond ammo economy and whether they were silent or not. Because those games are complex. If you're adding something to it, to this ecosystem, it has to be relevant. It has to be something interesting for the players, not just it's kind of the same thing if you think about it. So trying to think about those perks as that basically makes it a different weapon as the North Star was the idea. So, yeah, and then I'd say during the various passes of revising those perks, at some point when your systems are more solidified, you start thinking, it would be fun if we could interact with this, like the gas, for instance. It could be fun if we could interact with the gas in a different way, or it would be fun if we could use, if we could change the grenades into something else because they are predictable now and things like that. So it was a long process, and I'm really glad to hear this feedback again. This is as I was saying earlier, this is the most shootery Arkane game, so getting this kind of feedback is definitely really nice for me and for the system design and art and animation and sound team that worked on those weapons, starting from the conceit of they will probably not be as good as the ones in most shooters, but we try our best. That was really what we set out to do. I'll be honest.
a part of that, like, also is you have this new console, the PS5, and it has haptic triggers. With the new console generation and new technology, what was it like designing some of the elements of Deathloop's gameplay around some of the new console tech?
Yeah, I'd say the new consoles kind of snuck on us in a way. Like, we knew they were coming. We didn't know exactly what they were. And one thing we were hoping for was faster load times. Like, that was one of the bets, because you imagine this game with slow load times, with the loops and the structure of it, it would be actually very painful. So when Sony came to us and said, hey, we have this new, this new drive and very fast loading, etc., we were like, oh, this is exactly what we need. So that really helped. But I'd say more specifically to your question about the DualSense, it's just a nice perfect storm or something, because we do games about our subgenre is called immersive sims, so there is kind of immersion in it. And when PlayStation came and say one of the pillars for the controller is immersion, we are like, oh, tell me more. And we tried, so that's why we tried to really use it. Like, we loved it from the first prototype we had of the DualSense. We immediately fell in love with what we felt. Like, on paper, it's like, okay. When you have it in your hand, it's like, oh yeah. And immediately we were making a first-person shooter. We have powers, we have guns, and we have the whole player awareness, like this feeling of being there that we always work very hard on at Arkane with the animation and all these things, and having the opportunity to get some of that in your hands, the feeling of running faster, so making more noise, and having that be haptic feedback, or the reloading. There is this little feedback of when your magazine is empty, the triggers don't have an effect, like it's empty. And on the contrary, when your gun jam, it's harder to press. So this is something that your brain registers even faster than a UI pop-up saying you are out of ammo. So and sometimes it's a bit subconscious, like you start to. Maybe I'm telling you of something you didn't even notice, but your brain did notice. And that's the cool thing with this controller. So we tried to, first of all, enjoy the new toy as much as possible, because it was great to play with. And then make sure that it was, we were using them in ways that, go for our core studio values, which is immersion and reinforce the feel. And I'm really happy again with how it went. Yeah, and I'm happy that the team went for it as well, because it's you might be super excited and then the team is like, yeah, we have to do this, but no, this time it was a case of everyone was super happy. So
the feeling of like charging the nail gun, like holding it, you can feel the whole controller like shaking while it's charged, and then that just release of letting the trigger go and letting that nail fly. That was a core component behind one of the conversation of the best headshot of 2021, and it's just amazing like how much more visceral even just adding that functionality to the controller makes the entire experience.
Yeah, I'm glad, and it's definitely, I think this feedback is one of the stars. I'm also quite happy with the fact that the little speaker on the controller, you hear the shells of your bullets falling on the ground. Like you hear them here, like ding, ding, ding. It's very subtle when you're playing, but I think it's just a small, cool little feature. And when you mentioned the nail gun, I also like the fact that when you're charging it, you can kind of feel the nails like falling in the magazine, like just feeling all those things. And same when Colt is like have one of the low quality guns that is jamming, and just feeling him like punch the magazine back to obedience. It's just, as you say, visceral and cool. And the only thing we didn't want to make is to have some gameplay features that relied on those things, like a feedback that was only given through haptics, because, well, for some people it might, just make them a bit more tired with the triggers, etc., etc. So we wanted to make it optional, and we didn't want to be unfair with the people who deactivate it, or the PC players, obviously. So it is an added layer. So that was also an important part of the design. Try to not make it so that it replaces another feedback, but more enhances those feedbacks for gameplay. And
when you take all of this together, the story, the characters, the gunplay, like, I think I'm not alone in saying that, like, I want more out of this world. I want more out of the Deathloop canon, like, and that leads me to the question, like, this game has some very interesting outcomes based on the choices you make. Can you speak a little bit to where Arkane goes from here? Like, are we truly done with Colt or Black Reef, or is there possibly even more to explore?
I mean, I can't tell you more at this stage, or rather I won't in any case. The only thing I will say is that as a studio, what we, and with talking with Sebastian, co-creative director on Deathloop, we basically, have this idea that our relationship with the players is surprise and delight. That's the thing. That's what we try to do each time. So we hope that the next thing we do, the same way Deathloop surprised, and hopefully surprised for sure everyone and delighted a lot of people. We hope that the next thing we do will be as delightful and as surprising. That's the only answer I would say. I will give today.
Fair enough. And finally, going back to the fact that Deathloop was Shacknews Game of the Year 2021. I hate to put you on the spot, but I am going to put you on the spot. Could we possibly get an acceptance speech on your behalf for Deathloop Game of the Year 2021 at Shacknews?
Right now, no, not prepared. Wow. Okay. Well, I'd say that first of all, hopefully through this interview, you can see that this was quite a journey to put this game together. We made several, I would say, bets, risky bets to get there. The entire team worked hard in a situation where we were at home for the first time working on a game. This was quite a journey, both for the game and for the situation of the world at that time. So, there is a level of modesty in general when you get awards, and you say, well, we did our best, blah, blah, blah. In this case, due to the challenge and due to the emotional attachment that we have on this project, we very, very, very gladly accept, this award. Thank you very much. Thanks also for the best headshot award, because that's an amazing one, to put on Deathloop's accolades. Like this is amazing. So yeah, thank you very much from the entirety of Arkane. It's amazing.
Fantastic. And that's just about everything I have. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, Mr. Bacavo. This game has meant so much to a lot of people, and especially at Shacknews. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks a lot for the opportunity to talk, and I'm really glad again when we started, we said this is a game that will be loved by some and hated by many, and actually it seems like it's the contrary, and that's the best thing you can hope when you're making something with as much flavor. So